Hello, and I think we are live across three platforms today: LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And it's great to be back. It's crazy weather here in Ireland. We've had rain, we've had wind, we've had hail, we've had everything. And I'm joined here by Stephanie Barnes. How are you, Stephanie?
Good. And I think we're having the same weather as you are. And I'm
I
in
was going to
Berlin.
say, but I thought I'd leave that to you. And it's just crazy. It's nearly June, and anyway, so welcome, Stephanie. So Stephanie is a Canadian. She lives in Berlin. She spent the first part of her life and career trying to fit into many boxes, and we'll talk a little bit about thinking and working outside the box in a second. Obviously, university, accountant, MBA, IT professional, and then she realized the boxes weren't the things that were interesting her. At least not, at certain stages in her career. It's the white space between the boxes where things get interesting and engaging. And Stefan is on a mission to help bring creativity into our lives and organization, and that's what's in the space and in between. And that's what we're here to discuss. And we've had a couple of interesting conversations already, Stephanie, and I think you're so right. There's so much predictability. We were just talking about social media then, and I personally think there's time for just a new generation of social media. I don't know what it is. So what brought you to the realization that there was life outside of the boxes we're all trying to put ourselves and others in? What brought you to that realization?
I think the fact that I didn't really fit in any of the boxes. I tried to be an accountant. I didn't, in the end, pass the exams despite hours of exams and courses and practice and things. I didn't fit in that box. And I'm glad that I didn't fit in that box. It's good experience and background to have, but I'm really glad.
I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you didn't too.
But, and then I did the MBA and I didn't really fit in that box, although again, good experience, good, and I tried to fit in the PhD box and I quit after 2 months. And it's like, okay, I need to figure this out here, and it was the space in between that really got me interested. And then, I just kept pulling the thread, really.
So what do you mean by the space in between? How would you describe that?
The stuff that doesn't get written down. I mean, the stuff that's in the books, the stuff that's in the courses, all good. It's all interesting stuff, but it's how it applies to other disciplines and other areas. It's that intersection between them that isn't well documented. Now, I work in the space of art and business, and it's not well documented. There's lots of people that are talking about it now, more so than 10 years ago when I first had the idea that there was, a thread here to pull. But yeah, there's all this innovation, all this creativity, all of this stuff comes out of that space that doesn't neatly fit into a box.
Yeah. And why do you think that is? I mean, how did you first get starting, looking at the space between? What was it in you that thought, right, I need to start looking at this stuff?
I don't know that it was ever purposeful. It was always, just curiosity that drove me, and not finding, much that was written, about these spaces, this intersection space that always seemed to intrigue me. Like I say, there's even the business and IT, the accounting and IT stuff, which is in my educational background. It's like, well, I fit in this space of business and IT. I don't fit in the business one really well, and I don't fit in the IT one really well, but I fit really well in this, where they intersect.
Yeah.
And so it was.
I get that. I mean, I'm qualified as a lawyer, but I've also been a CEO. I've also been a consultant in the Indigenous space. I also coach. I train. I've written stuff. In fact, I could rattle off a list of things I do, right? And they're all on my LinkedIn. And somebody said to me a while ago, you're almost unemployed. You're kind of unemployable, Simon, because you don't fit. If I, at the age of 53, were looking for an executive role, I think people would think, are you joking? Because I do all these different things. And yet, in the intersection point between them, right, that seems to be where I make money and where I have most fun. So Why is it, do you think, why do you think we as individuals and maybe more companies shy away from that space in between? I mean, companies just seem to have roles, and if you don't fit that role, they scratch their head and they don't talk to you. And yet, surely the keys to success are ambiguity and dealing with thinking outside the box. What is it about all that?
I think as human beings, we like certainty, and boxes give us certainty. Having somebody with a certain qualification gives us theoretically some certainty. Although I used to say when I was an accountant, I knew accountants that I wouldn't let balance my checkbook, so there's, we need to understand sort of the limitations sometimes of these certifications, but yeah, I think we want that certainty, and that, so having someone, having a box and putting someone in it gives us that certainty. And we are really uncomfortable with oh, well, they don't really fit in the box, and they kind of do, and they kind of don't. And yeah, and that just makes us nervous.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. It's crazy. I mean, companies have roles, and of course you need technical roles. Okay. But innovation and new processes don't come out of roles. They come out of space and collaboration. I mean, look at what happened with Apple in '99 when they gave some engineers time and they came up with the iPod, and all these companies. And I worked with an amazing company called Xilinx years ago. I was head legal counsel for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and they produced the world's most amazing programmable logic, the stuff that is on the moon buggy and sat nav and this stuff. And when I arrived at the culture of this place, there were lots of engineers, highest end technological engineers sitting around in the canteen chatting and stuff. And I was thinking, why aren't they all at their desks? Because I came from a legal background. And so it's a perception thing. How much of it do you think is insecurity and perception, particularly in businesses, that unless you are doing a role or a job sheet, then you're potentially a drag on the business? How much of it is insecurity and perception?
I think all of it.
So do I.
I think, and I think we've been brought up, our education system and our social system in a lot of cases have really given us this impression that, if we just fit in the box, if we go to school and we get a good degree, a good, background, a lawyer or an accountant or, whatever, and we just fit into this box, that everything's going to be all right. And we're going to have, I don't know if this is a thing in Ireland. It's a thing in Canada, certainly in the U.S. A white house in the suburbs with the white
fence,
and all of that stuff. And honestly, that stuff is boring. I don't know really. I know there are people that like that, and part of me, on a bad day would like that too. But on most days, I was like, well, that would be so boring. I personally like the adventure, and I like not knowing. And pulling that string and following my curiosity, that's interesting to me. And I think that that's a confidence thing. If I go back to when I decided at 14 that I was going to be an accountant, I'm not sure that, I think at that point, my curiosity had already been driven out of me because of, these adults around me that said, you have to pick a career. And now, at 14, what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
So what is it? I mean, like you, I've traveled the world. Whenever I see these surveys on Twitter and people say, how many countries have you been to? I always post, and I always seem to come higher than most, right? Because I've traveled the world. I've left a really safe career, which was law. I've also left roles. I've done some risky things, right? I've been an entrepreneur, and it's succeeded and it's failed. And you have taken chances. What is it why are some people, are they geared, or are they just primed to be more risk takers? And some people just fit that 9-to-5 corporate career. What is it?
I think for me, it was, I kind of got to the point where I was just not happy with trying to fit into the box. And I felt like I had tried to fit into the box. And, and I just got to the point where I had checked off a lot of things on my I will be happy when list, and I wasn't happy. I was downright miserable, honestly. And And so that's really what drove me into what would make me happy. What do I want for myself? You know, and I think in some respects, I think I started that journey, that questioning way too late, because I was almost 40 by the time I decided that this was just really not working for me. You know, and so, but I don't know, some people never get there, which is disappointing.
I agree. I left the UK when I was just under 30, and I emigrated for the first time to Ireland with my wife, and then we immigrated to Australia when I was just below 40, and then we came back, around just below 50. So it always seems to be below that 10, 30, 40, 50 thing. But I'll never forget when I left the UK first time. I remember looking at all those commuters on the trains going into London, commuting in 2 hours, commuting back 2 hours. And there was a television program in the UK in the 70s called Reginald Perrin about this guy who basically did that every day. He commuted in, commuted back. And one day he just had enough and he decided to walk into the sea and disappear, right? He just had enough of that race. And that always resonated in my head. I always had this feeling that I needed to break free, right? Have you had that feeling?
That I had to break free? I'm not sure that I would describe it that way. I have definitely had the feeling of enough is enough. I'm not going to worry about the shoulds anymore. I'm not going to worry about what anybody thinks anymore. I'm going to figure out, at least if I do something that makes me happy, at least one person is happy, because God knows I'm not going to make anybody else happy, and so if I can make myself happy, at least I know one person's happy. And honestly, it's the most important person.
That's a good way of putting it. And so you kind of alluded to this, but what would you say are the benefits of being more comfortable in the space between? If I'm sure there are people listening to this live or potentially afterwards who are thinking about this, right? What are the benefits? You're not enticing people away, by the way, but what are the benefits of being comfortable living in this space, would you say?
I think less stress and anxiety, just a greater comfort level. I look at some of the experiences I had. I spent some time working for a Nigerian NGO a few years ago, and it was a really good experience, but it was also a very stressful experience because it really challenged some of my beliefs about being on time and doing things that I said I was going to do when I said I was going to do them. And I got to the point there working with them that it's like, okay, there are only some things under my control. So I can be ready to go to the office, when I'm at 8 o'clock. But if the driver doesn't show up for 45 minutes until 8:45, then that's beyond my control. I just need to let go of that. And so that was it sounds silly when I say it out loud now. And I really enjoyed working with this NGO. They're doing wonderful work and lovely, lovely people. But I found that really stressful because I'm somebody that's 15 minutes early for everything. And so to be on time or to be late really drove me crazy. But I had to get to the point where it's like, okay, this is beyond my control. I'm ready. I can do what I can do. And then after that, I just have to chill and relax. And that really has transferred over into so many other things, in a much bigger way than just sort of intellectualizing it. Because now it's like, I've done what I can do and let the universe take care of the rest.
I have a very similar philosophy. And so if you were going to describe the work you do today, do you do a whole mix of different things? Do you do what comes next and then you consider, can I do this? Or how would you describe what's an average month for you or an average week for you? If there is an average one.
There isn't an average. I do all kinds of things. I do a little bit of coaching sometimes, around management, around creativity. I do some painting stuff, helping people get back in touch with their creativity. Sometimes, so we do like painting workshops online, or painting coaching stuff online. I do workshops for organizations and training for organizations. And sometimes it's really analytical, sort of traditional knowledge management stuff, helping people pick the technology and stuff for knowledge management. And sometimes it's my Radical KM stuff, which takes all of the stuff that I just said and blends it all together.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the Radical KM? You've mentioned it to me and you've shared something with me. And describe what Radical KM means.
Sure. Radical KM's about adding creativity back into our workplaces. And I always say back in, because that's, how the phrase goes, but I'm not sure that it was ever really there in the first place. So it's really adding it in the first place.
Yeah.
But we've taken this, inherited these models, it's the industrial age models about production lines and factory work and things that just don't work with knowledge work. We're all thinkers now. Production line thinking does not work with that. And so knowledge work. The other thing that's happened, since the industrial age is sort of the chaos and confusion that we're living in, on a daily, hourly basis. And so people need to be able to adapt and be flexible. And so creativity helps us do that, helps us bring that skill set in, and helps people get more comfortable with what we've been talking about, with the white space, with not knowing. One of the things that we do in the Radical KM workshops is painting, and people are so freaked out by having a white canvas, in front of them. And they're like, oh, but what if I get it wrong? And I'm like, there is no wrong. Yeah. There is no wrong. Wherever you put the paint, it's the right place to put the paint. Yeah. And so we do this, we work through the paintings and the issues and stuff that come up over the course of the workshop. And one of the things we talk about in between painting sessions is how this stuff transfers over to our work life, because it does, it gives us the confidence to try and go, oh, I don't know, if this is the right thing, but I'm going to try and see.
Yeah. You're so right. So how would you say people can get started being comfortable existing in this space in between? What are some of the things that people could do to ease themselves into this journey?
I think just do something that makes you a bit uncomfortable, something new, something different, something you've kind of always maybe thought might be interesting, but didn't have the courage to try, Yeah. When I first started, I tried golf. I thought when I did my MBA, I thought, oh, everybody plays golf. I should play golf. It might be fun to try. I like, there's sports that I like and sports that I don't like. Golf, unfortunately, falls into one of the ones that I don't like, I discovered. But, I did an improv course, and that was huge. That was so far out of my box when I did that course, but had such great impact. I did a tandem jump out of an airplane at, forget what it is, 12,000 feet or something. Do something that scares you a little bit.
but you're so right. I mean, like, it was about 2 years ago, I was asked to be a guest on a radio show over here in Ireland, and I'll shout out to Joe Dalton, who's become a really good friend. And then he asked me eventually to become his co-host. And as a result of that, I do a lot of, speaking and podcasts and stuff like this. And I've got over a huge fear that I had all my life, which I haven't really shared, which was, unless I'd rehearsed things, right? Unless I had, like, I've got notes here, right? But I'm actually going to put them down because I don't need them, right? But I used to think, unless I had notes in front of me, I would just automatically seize up. I had this fear of seizing up. And so I was great on a keynote stage with notes, but I could never improv or never just stand up for 5 minutes and talk. And by doing what I did there, I realized that I can actually. I've just spoken now for a minute nonstop, right? I can do it, right? And so I think a few people have said, freedom is the other side of fear, right? And
yes.
Do you agree with that? And this, I guess, building on that, is that where innovation comes from? Does it come from a process of just letting go? How would you describe the whole thing about innovation and fear and all this? Is it related?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm not sure about freedom on the other side of fear, but I think there's a lot of things on the other side of fear. And it's generally a very good place on the other side of fear. And And yeah, is that where innovation comes from? Yeah, I think that there's, because it's new and it's different, and it's something that there wasn't some certainty around before,
Yeah.
And there's always some fear tied up in that. Well, this is different than anything, when we were talking about social media before, the first time they put a social media platform online, I'm sure somebody was saying, well, they've never done anything like this before, and hesitancy about launching that.
Yeah. It's funny, I find a lot of people you mentioned it before about in the context of painting, but a lot of people just feel like they have these limiting beliefs that just hold them back from trying anything. But when you think about it, I mean, and I've proven it to myself, if you apply your mind to most things, right, and really focus, you can do most things. I'm not great with finances. I'm not an accountant. And I have this radical fear of taxes, right? But a year and a half ago, I had to get down and dirty with tax spreadsheets with an advisor, and I ended up correcting stuff, right? And that was only because the professional advisors were. That was only because I completely focused, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as I finished focused, I just had to relax and sit back. So is that the process of the space in between? Is it focusing but then giving yourself space? It's not a constant thing, is it? It's you need to choose your moments. It's a fluid thing.
Because I was going to say that, like, I was feeling stuck with my consulting practice in the pandemic last year and did the opposite. I didn't focus. I went and painted. I ended up painting 5 paintings and totally transformed my consulting practice through that, from the reflections and the things that I thought about, or that came out of the things that I was thinking about when I was painting, and how they were a metaphor for stuff that was going on in my consulting practice. So totally transformed things. Yeah. So, and I want to say too, I'm exactly the opposite of you with public speaking, because I'll speak no problem without notes, but give me notes and I'm completely lost, because I get it in my head that I'm not saying it right. I'm not remembering it. I want to be perfect. So I'm way better without notes.
Wow. It's funny, isn't it? It's just, so, I mean, in conclusion, the space in between, how do you think, we're in such a volatile, unpredictable, complex, ambiguous, in other words, VUCA world right now, and companies are really scratching their heads thinking what to do next, right? We need to, manage costs, while B, projecting out that everything's okay, while C, looking 5 years ahead. What should or could businesses be doing just to calm down and allow something to happen, right? What could they do in this space in between?
Well, I think first they need to be honest and say, you know what, we don't know 5 years out what's going to happen. We don't know 5 months out what's going to happen, but we're doing the best we can. And this is where open, honest communication comes into
Absolutely.
And just be honest with people, be vulnerable, be honest, and leave space for the open space, and do something different. Help people cope with VUCA, and trust that in the end you'll get what you need out of it. But stop being quite so logical, because the world is anything but logical at this point. So
I think you're right. I think it's honesty. I think it's calmness. It's compassion, and also courage, and the courage to be honest about, well, we can't project the future. We can't predict anything. So, we need to live in the moment, but allow that space to germinate whatever's possible there, right? And so how do people find out more about you?
Oh, I'm on LinkedIn. This went out on LinkedIn. I'm Stephanie Barnes on LinkedIn. My picture looks mostly like me. I think I have different glasses. Or just my if you go to radicalkm.com, that's my webpage, and there's contact, my email address and stuff is out there. So radicalkm.com.
Cool. Well, it's been great chatting with you, and that space in between, this 20 minutes has been a space in between all the different things, and you just never know what comes out of conversations. You never know what people are listening to, and so it's wonderful. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.